What is up, fellow summoners? Welcome to the channel today. Thanks for stopping by for another closer look review. This week on my newest 4-star character that I've recently added to my roster, and that is Yondu from Guardians of the Galaxy. I was really hyped about this champ when I first saw the MCOC mod video with the gameplay footage drop, that leaked footage on YouTube, and I knew for sure that he was somebody that I wanted to add to my roster. So I don't want to get too much into it here in the opening, so let's go ahead and jump over into the rank up. We'll get through that, and I will catch you guys on the other side in the ability list. So I think Yondu, unfortunately, for most of the community, was a misunderstood champ when he dropped, and the reason I say that is because for the first round of the featured arena, his cutoff was fairly high. It was like 15 million, 15.1, somewhere right around there. And then in the second round, it dropped way down. Something similar to what we saw with King Groot. It dropped all the way down to like 7.5, 7.7, right around there. And it signals to me that people, once they actually got a hold of him and started playing with him, were unimpressed. Either his damage output wasn't as high as what they thought, maybe his bleed wasn't as strong, they couldn't really find a spot for him, and the hype for him, the interest in him, the desire to awaken him kind of fell off the map. And for me personally, he turned out to be exactly what I thought he was going to be and exactly what I was hoping for. As I mentioned before, when I first saw that MCOC mod video, the gameplay footage, and I started reading through his abilities, he looked to me like a purpose-built champ to be used in Alliance War offense. And I really was looking for a new champ to bring into my Alliance War offense, and he kind of exactly fit the bill for that. I was very impressed with him once I actually ran him through my first Alliance War, and I'll show you some gameplay footage of that here as well. But definitely go check out that Alliance War video. I'll have it linked in the description if you haven't seen it. But basically, if you look through all of his abilities, and we'll start up in the signature ability, the Centurion Archery, that is very similar to the Mastery that we see. I think it's called Inequity. For each debuff that is on the enemy, they actually do less and less damage. And in this case, for each debuff on the enemy, when the enemy uses a special, for each one of those debuffs, they gain a weakness, and that procs right before the special is actually used. That's for the S1, S2, or S3. It procs right before the S3 animation. Even though you may not see it, technically it is there, and they will receive the weakness. So there's a couple ways that you can put on debuffs with Yondu. First and foremost, most obviously, is the bleeds that his arrow causes. There's a 25% chance for it to cause a bleed. If the enemy is bleed immune, that bleed is going to be replaced with a armor break, which is similar to what we see with like Electra. Similar to something we see with X-23. If the champs are bleed immune, she does a separate effect. So we've got bleeds we can stack, we've got armor breaks that we can stack. His S1 has a heal block, and you can also stack the heal block as well if you've got a couple of S1s that you're putting on there. So if you're really pushing, if you're being aggressive, by the time if you manage to push somebody into a special and you get hit by it, if you've got 3 or 4 effects on the enemy, you're going to be doing, or they're going to be doing, a lot less damage in that special. For each stack at level 21, you can see my character there. It reduces attack by 24.9, basically 25%, which once you've got 2, 3, or more buffs on them, that's a significant amount of attack removal from the enemy in the S3. Basically, the way that I look at this is through your normal gameplay, you're going to be applying bleeds, you're going to be applying armor breaks, whatever it may be, and you're probably going to be heal blocking if you're in Alliance War on offense. And this is just kind of an added layer of protection if you manage to make a mistake. Let's say this is a power gain node, you're dealing with Hyperion, or you're dealing with magic. It's very difficult to control that power. However, if you've got several debuffs on the champ, you almost don't need to worry about it. If their S3 is doing, let's say, 75% less damage, you can afford to eat a couple of those and probably still be able to finish off the fight. So even though he does not have a power control and he doesn't have any sort of a regen, you actually can extend the fight out by being able to survive a lot of those real strong special attacks that would kill other players. So let's talk about Yondu's arrow, and this is really what sold me on the champ when I first read through these abilities. I had a node in mind and a character in mind specifically that I thought he was going to be really good against, and I'll get into all that here as we talk about the arrow. For starters, the arrow, when you use it, there's a 25% chance that it will cause a bleed. If the champion is bleed immune, that bleed will be replaced with an armor break, which I love having characters that have kind of a dual purpose. They've got the bleeds, and then if champs are bleed immune, they've also got an ability to work around that. So either way, the arrow has a 25% chance to cause one of these abilities, whether they're bleed immune or not. Now, when you're doing your regular 5-hit combo, when you do a medium, light, medium attack, the first light attack and then the third light attack in that combo, he uses the arrow only. So 2 out of your 5 hits have a chance to cause one of these effects. In addition to that, your heavy attack also uses the arrow, so there's a chance there to cause an additional bleed. And actually, if I scroll down here for just a quick second, since I'm talking about the heavy, but the heavy actually has an increase of 50% to its ability accuracy. So out of all of the attacks that you're using the arrow, the heavy attack has got a very, very strong chance that it's going to cause a bleed or a armor break, excuse me. And then for your special attack 1 and your special attack 2, there's a chance every time you use the arrow there that you're going to cause a bleed as well. So there's a lot of opportunities. Even though the 25% chance may seem kind of low, you're actually using the arrow a lot throughout the fight, and you'll be surprised how often you have 2 or more bleeds stacked up or 2 or more armor breaks stacked up. Now, if it was just that, you know, I wouldn't be super hyped for the champ, but it was when I read this, the end part there is where I got super hyped for him. The strength and precision of Yondu's arrow allows him to trigger both critical hits and abilities through an enemy block, and so that's the bleed and the armor break. He can proc through an enemy block. In addition, he can do critical hits through the enemy block, which they don't show up yellow as critical hits, but I've got some gameplay footage here. I was going up against Iceman, and Iceman, he actually's got a couple things working against him. Because he is bleed immune, I'm stacking armor breaks. So I've got the armor break for me, I've got the chance to get a critical hit through a block, and then also as a passive ability, I've got block and armor penetration. So what you're seeing is as I'm attacking him through his blocking, I'm actually doing a ton of damage. I've got the armor break that's proc through a block, I've got a chance to critical hit through the block, I've got my armor penetration, and this is a Thorns node. So why that's so important is when you are attacking a character that is blocking on Thorns node, you do not receive any damage back to yourself. It is only successful physical hits that you receive damage from. So I can do a lot of damage through blocking. I can still put all of my abilities on him while I'm attacking through the block. The armor penetration is working for me. And then on top of that, I actually can control when I'm physically hitting him. As I mentioned before, when you do a 5-hit combo, there's 2 of those 5 hits actually with the arrow. But you can actually consolidate that and reduce that by removing your medium attack and only doing 3 hits. If you parry stun and then do 3 light attacks, the first light attack and the third light attack there are only with the arrow. So only 1 out of 3 hits are you actually going to be receiving Thorns damage from physically hitting him. The other way you can work around this is also if you want to parry, stun, and use a heavy. For whatever reason, I don't believe the second part of that heavy attack was actually triggering Thorns, which I don't know if that is the way that it is supposed to be, because the first part of the heavy's with the arrow, second part he actually punches, but I think that probably will be fixed. But either way, you've got an increased chance for ability accuracy with heavy to add a bleed or to cause an armor break before you go back in and start hitting him again through his block. So when I read through this, it was the it was the Thorns node. Clear as day popped into my head, and this is exactly why I wanted the champ, because I didn't want to bring in a champ that lowers defensive ability accuracy just specifically for this node. I wanted a character who I could use throughout the fights, but then also bring in for the Thorns node. And really, even on top of this stuff, if we continue to read through here, you'll notice that pretty much all of his abilities are geared specifically towards Alliance War attack. He has a chance to steal armor, which is cool, I guess. Unfortunately, you don't actually run into a lot of defenders that have armor up abilities. Most of those are reserved for the tech class. You know, we got Colossus in there, but really none of those champs you see on defense right now. So maybe as newer champs come out, that is something he'll be able to take more advantage of. But for right now, it's just kind of a side note. But more specifically, you generate 10% less power in the target for each debuff that they suffer up to a maximum of 50%. So not only when you're attacking into a block, again talking about the Thorns node, when you're attacking into the block, you're actually doing quite a bit of damage. You're causing your abilities, the bleeds, and the armor breaks, and what that's doing is that's reducing the amount of power that they are generating every time that you hit him. So even though you are attacking them while they're blocking, and you yourself are not gaining power, they actually are receiving a diminished amount of power while you're attacking into their block. So again, that when I read that, again, that triggered me over to the Thorns node. The special attack 1, there's 100% offensive ability accuracy, meaning it cannot be evaded by Spider-Man, or more specifically Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is a huge pain, and this is a great kind of S1 to have in your back pocket. If you're fighting him and you don't have him in his swashbuckling state, and he's likely to evade. If you've got that S1 in your pocket and you're attacking him, as soon as you see him evade back, a lot of times he's going to come in and try to smack you. But if you smash the S1, even with his evasion buff up, he's not going to be able to get around that. So that's got a chance to cause a bleed, but more importantly, it also has a 100% chance to cause a heal block, which initially it's a 10-second heal block. If the character is regenerating, it's going to become a 20-second heal block, and those actually will stack on top of one another. So you can actually draw out a really, really long heal block on the champ. You can stack those with your bleeds and armor breaks to help with your signature ability, the Centurion Archery, to trigger more weakness in the character when they use specials. The S2 has got additional block penetration. So that's additional to what he has passively, and then also he has a synergy with Beast that has an additional 400 block penetration. So all said and done, by the time you use your S2, you've got anywhere between like 850 and 1200-ish block penetration, depending upon if you're running the synergies or not. And this actually, it does more damage every time that a special is used throughout the fight. Excuse me, anytime the enemy uses a special throughout the fight, it actually increases the attack of this special too. So a lot of times, like for instance Nightcrawler, when I was fighting Nightcrawler, I'm baiting out a lot of specials when he was on that stun immune node, because that is what triggered my ability to be able to attack him a lot of times, is after those specials. So after he used 3, 4, 5 of those things, by the time the fight was getting towards the end, I fired off that S2. We got the extra block penetration, we got the extra damage from all the specials that have been being used, and was able to knock him out. I think that's a really, really strong S2. It's one of those things that you kind of want to hold on to. Probably just want to use the S1 quite a bit throughout the fight to get the heal block and to get the debuff on the character. But then towards probably the later, after you've pushed through 50% of their health, once you're kind of into that assassin stage, you've got assassin mastery built up, that is really the time to use the S2. It's going to be doing a lot of damage. And then finally, the S3 is really, really interesting. There's a 100% chance to boost your critical rate by a fairly significant amount there for 10 seconds. But more interesting than that is that the arrow actually, and the special 3 from Yondu, it's I'm just going to read it here. Severely damaged by the Yaka arrow, enemies are unable to trigger abilities during their next special attack. And there does not seem to be any sort of a timer on that. At any point throughout the fight, once they get to their next special attack, whatever that may be, an S1, S2, or S3, whenever they do finally trigger that thing and you've used an S3, they're not going to be able to generate whatever buff they would receive by using that. So for instance, let's just use Nightcrawler. When he uses his S1, he gains that evasion buff. If you triggered an S3 prior to him doing that, that evasion buff is not going to work. That even works for like stuns. I tested this against an Iron Patriot. I used an S3 and then pushed him into an S3, and that S3 should have stunned me, but it did not. So I'm not sure that that's something that is like super OP. I could see instances maybe in the future where there are specific buffs that give, you know, increased abilities to special attacks. So for right now, maybe not so useful, but in the future, it might be really, really useful to remove some sort of special ability or buff from a special attack. So that's just something to keep in mind. Very similar to kind of the armor steal that he's got, just something to keep in mind. But for normal Alliance War offensive gameplay, you won't be using that a lot, because most of the time, like I said, you're going to want to spam the S1 and then save the S2 for the later 50% of the fight. Outside of Thorns nodes, he's really strong against magic. The reason for that is you can have a heal block on her pretty much the whole time, And the thing that makes Magic so tricky, even though you cannot get around her limbo damage if it procs, the ability to just continue to attack into her as if she's not going to get any of that regen back because you've got the heal block on there, it actually ends the fight fairly quickly. You know, the problem with Magic is that whenever she triggers limbo, you just got to kind of stand there. You can't do damage. You really don't want to give her power. So you gotta sit there, take the damage, and wait, and it makes the fight so much longer. Whereas Yondu can get around that by being able to heal block her, and even if you trigger limbo, doesn't matter. You just keep moving forward, keep doing your attack, place bleeds on her as many as you can, get back to another S1, keep the heal block up the whole time, and just burn her down as quickly as possible. So this is kind of the opposite side of the control characters that you use. If you're trying to use, I don't know, like a Dormammu or a Vision or a Hawkeye, trying to control the power and keep her from ever getting into the limbo stage, this is kind of the opposite of that. This is kind of foot to the floor. You're going full steam ahead, just trying to do as much damage as possible, keeping that heal block up and finishing the fight before the limbo really has a chance to tick for a lot and do a lot of damage. So Thorns node, I think he's really strong for. Magic, I think he's really good against. Other options, obviously Nightcrawler, he's got class advantage, attacking through the block, very, very strong champ for that. Even characters like Hyperion, you know, you constantly are dealing with Hyperion, trying to get him out, bait out specials to keep him from getting to an S3. But again, this is kind of the reverse of that. Instead of trying to control it, you almost just want to push him as hard as you can to get as many bleeds, to get heal blocks, whatever you can put on the champ. And then when you do push him into the S3, if it does happen, you know, you've got all of that weakness that triggers him to keep yourself alive through that. This is actually one character that I am very strongly considering opening up a few of the defensive abilities in Inequity and Resonate and just testing those out. If you combine that with his weakness on top of that, I feel like you could have a reduced character you're fighting at all times throughout the fight. You know, you've got the weaknesses that'll proc for the specials. Then you've got Inequity and Resonate both working for you throughout the normal fight when you have your bleeds and your armor breaks and your heal blocks up. Because pretty much for the entire fight, you're going to have something up on the character. The bleed attack, even though it's not real strong, it's almost always up. The armor break, if they're bleed immune, is almost always up. And then you've got that heal block kind of sitting there in your back pocket as well. So there's a lot of really good options for him on Alliance War. On offense, I will continue to run him in Alliance War offense, get more footage for you guys to be able to see. But yeah, I hope that this has shined a little bit of light on him, because to be honest, in all honesty, he's not a good Alliance Quest character. He just does not really hit that hard to justify bringing into Alliance Quest. He doesn't have a regen. There's so many more better characters there. For event questing, for story questing, again, there's just better options when it comes to characters who can regen and do damage. But when it comes to very special, unique nodes like the Thorns nodes and very specific fights like Magic and Hyperion, even Mordo, you know, Mordo's S3 doesn't hit very hard, and if you pair that up with weakness, it's really not going to hit very hard. So you don't have to worry about all that power gain and pushing him there as well. So that's why I say he feels very purpose-built for Alliance War offense. I think that they may have done that on purpose. I can't really think of any other character that you can run through their ability list and say, like, yeah, this is an Alliance War offensive character specifically, but I think that's what they've done here with Yondu, and I'm happy for it. It was exactly what I wanted. It turned out to be exactly what I was hoping it would be, and I hope you guys are able to get him. I know he's not going to come around as a 4-star for a while, but definitely play with him as a 3-star, practice with him, and look forward to when he does come out in the basic arena. Definitely a character that you should be picking up. Alright guys, I hope that you enjoyed the video. Yondu, I'm having a lot of fun playing with. If you have any questions, definitely leave those down in the comment section below. Follow me over on Twitter. The link to that will be in the description as well. I can answer questions over there for you if you'd like. Alright, appreciate all the support as always. Until I see you in the next video, have a great day.